Okay, I have it 7:15. We'll now call this meeting to order. If I can ask our County Administrator, Ms. Hill, if you'll lead us in a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise as you're able. Join me in a moment of silence, and then I'll lead us in the pledge. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. First up, under presentation, recognitions, and awards, we welcome the Montgomery Museum of Arts and History.
Casey Jenkins is here with us tonight. He's going to give us a presentation about museum activities and a capital projects update.
All right. Good evening, Board of Supervisors, Madam Chair. I want to thank you all for letting me come out and speak tonight on behalf of the museum to give you some updates on what's going on at the county museum, your county museum, as well as some capital update projects as well. I have a small cohort of the board with me tonight, so it's great support, and I appreciate you letting us do this tonight. I'm going to start with some updates and a recap of where we are this year, being good stewards of your funds that you have previously given us, and then roll into some capital updates and projects from there. So in this past year, we've gone through a lot of changes, a lot of positive changes, including a revised mission and vision statement. So our new mission is to connect and engage the community through the arts and the preservation and interpretation of history. And while we do that, we're looking forward to the future as we aspire to be a premier regional cultural center that offers creative, inspirational, and enriching programming and is an inclusive, collaborative gathering space for the entire community. So these are the things that kind of guide us as we move forward from this year into the future. A little bit of what we're made of to talk about here tonight. Just in this past year alone, in 2023, we had 8 new art exhibits, 7 history exhibits, and 3 major special community events held in Blacksburg and Christiansburg. We had 6 exhibit openings and receptions. And as you can see here, we kind of like to tout the numbers where we have them. Year to date, we're at 4,600 visitors, which is surpassing where we were for the entire year of last year, 4,300. That was our first year in the new building. And as you can see, that was a huge jump from 2021 when we made the transition from our old site at Pepper Street to the new building, going from 1,325 to 4,300. So we're on quite a nice pace there for visitation. That includes all of our receptions and researchers as well. So we do cater to a lot of people here in Montgomery County and beyond. Our museum membership is primarily made up of county residents, Blacksburg, Christiansburg, and the surrounding area. 86% of our museum members call Montgomery County, Virginia home as well. So that really speaks volumes to how we can cater to our local residents. This just kind of shows you some of the growth that we've had year over year, and this is just our operating budget. 2021, prior to the move, we were at $92,000 as an operating budget, and you can see how in just 3 years we have really been able to exponentially grow that budget significantly, so we're quite proud about that. And next year we're looking at close to a $300,000 budget, which is great. Just a quick preview of what we have next year. We're always looking to do something bigger and better than what we did previously. So our first major special event next year is going to be what's called Arts and RV Market, and it brings in juried artists from around the NRV and the Roanoke Valley to the area. But what we're really proud about in this upcoming year is that the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, which is the state-of-the-art institution in Richmond, will be traveling with its ginormous semi-truck that'll be parked in our back parking lot. So it'll be quite a spectacle that happens in June. That truck is about 1.5 times the size of a normal semi, so it is quite large, and we'll be bringing that and have quite a following with it when it comes for that art show. Heritage Day, which you guys are probably a little more familiar with, that's one of our staples we've had in downtown Christiansburg for years. Heritage Day is going to be on the fourth Saturday in August, and that brings culture and tradition and heritage all together in a place that's very family-friendly and offers something for everybody to come learn about their history and heritage here in Montgomery County. And then last but not least, we've started doing an annual heritage music concert. We just wrapped up our second one at the Moss Art Center and are looking to do our third next fall at the Moss. It's called Cultural Crossroads, and it'll be an infusion of African-American, the traditional roots of African-American, European, and Native American music as it informs bluegrass. So we're quite excited for that. Our museum garden, which still sits up on Pepper Street in our old location, is still very special to a lot of people, including us. As you know, we still retain that property on Pepper Street, and it's a site that is a great respite for people, recreational asset that we have. It provides food to low-income housing, and is somewhere where you can just take the kids in a picnic and a really good time. And so that's still open and accessible year-round, 365. And we have master gardeners, you can see on the left there, that really do a good job of taking care of that for us as well and provide educational resources to kids. One of the things that we have upcoming in 2024, bringing back really, is something called Montgomery County Junior Appalachian Musicians. So we take students from around the county, from Price's Fork all the way to Christiansburg Elementary. And what we do is we have 4 different instruments that we teach them with instructors. And the museum is actually going to serve as the fiscal agent for this in 2024 to bring that back and basically be able to teach music through heritage in a way that's understandable to elementary school kids and really get them more involved in the arts that way as well. So it's history and art all together, and it's a great program that COVID took away in 2020, and we're going to bring that back in 2024 as the new fiscal agent of the program. One of the things you also may have heard about is something called the Art of Happiness that we just brought back in its second year. And this is one we're really proud about this. This is something that basically what it is, it takes museum spaces, resources, and exhibits and pairs that with mental health, raising awareness to emotional health and mental health, and doing so in a way that provides a non-traditional setting for folks to participate in self-help coping strategies for things like anxiety or depression. In this past year, it was very successful. It won an award from the Virginia Association of Museums, their 2023 Innovation Award they give out to one museum across the Commonwealth that we were able to produce. And this was in partnership with Lewis Gale. They were our sponsor for that. They saw the value in that. And we're bringing that back here in year number 2, starting next month to bring that back. So if you want to learn more information about that, come find me, because it's a great program and a growing one at that, now in its second year. We're quite happy about that. And I mentioned the Virginia Association of Museums. That's a state association of museums. Most states in the country have a state association of museums, like many industries. And one of the things that we're really proud about, it's a group of about 3,000 members that represent museums big and small, everything from Mount Vernon, the Chrysler, Monticello, all the way down to museums that are run just by volunteers. And this association has actually tapped us on the shoulder and said, we'd like for you to lead our 2025 conference planning and bring it to Blacksburg, Virginia. And that is the first time this conference has ever been west of Roanoke for a conference. And so the economic development piece of that is huge. And so is raising the awareness to arts, history, and culture in Montgomery County. This is a group that most of them don't know where Montgomery County is and think that it's not much more than a couple sticks, if I'm being honest. So, for them to come down here and see this really means a lot. And we can be the lead museum on this in partnership with Virginia Tech to make this come alive. So this is one of our biggest accomplishments at this point that we hope to have in 2025, now that we have this conference secure to bring in that many people to Blacksburg, Virginia, most of which who have never been to this county before. So that's great. All right, so that was just a very quick update as to where we are and kind of and what we're looking to aspire to in the next year. And I wanted to get a little more granular and talk about where we are with our capital project as well. We started a little over a year and a half ago on raising funds toward the purchase of our building enhancements, and capital projects. And to date, we've raised about $1.1 million in cash from that sale. And, excuse me. This is coming from a museum that only raised $60,000 from our old building, which was to replace our roof. So we really have gone a long way, and we're quite pleased with that. 1.1 is where we're at right now, and we're about to engage in phase 2, which includes replacement of our main HVAC system, an elevator for our building. I think most of you have been in there by now to see our conference and community room downstairs, but we do need an elevator for ADA accessibility and some other enhancements as well. So that really is what incorporates phase 2 of our capital campaign that this month we have just started. So we're quite pleased by that. The reason we are here raising these funds for some of these capital projects is because for example, one of our projects, the HVAC system, our main HVAC system is in decline. It's an antiquated system built for a bank, not a museum, where we sit. And as you can see, the pictures here kind of demonstrate what happens when you don't have temperature control and a lack of humidity. So on the left, what you can see is an old county map that's starting to crumple in spaces. The middle photo is our vault on the main floor. That's rust that's showing. Again, a lack of humidity control that we have, and the rust is starting to creep up on the vault. And then the right is actually a land grant signed by President James Monroe that is also starting to puff in the middle, and that's not something that's not good. So these are reasons that show that our collection of itself is in decline. And it's important to know our collection, which represents all of Montgomery County history, is really the heartbeat of telling our story here from Montgomery County, Blacksburg, Christiansburg, Virginia Tech. If we can't properly care for those artifacts, then we can't properly tell the stories and heritage that Montgomery County has to offer, which, as we know, is quite a lot. And this just gives you a bit more information. We have a total of over 7,000 artifacts at our disposal that represent our history and heritage. But if we can't properly take care of them, then that's a problem. And it kind of shows you from a collection standpoint how the volume of those donations have gone up and up as we've become more prevalent. So have the collection donations and people wanting us to take care of their histories as well. So what are we doing about it, first and foremost? Again, our capital campaign, phase 2, is to raise funds to address these problems related to the HVAC system. And to date, we have raised and earmarked $225,000 for the main unit HVAC system that we have in our bank account right now. We are in a process where we've engaged a mechanical engineer for drawings. And that's underway as we speak, and we'll have the drawings for a new system by the end of the year. We'll have that to review, and then it'll be time to, next year, look at that construction for a new HVAC system. So we have $225 in our pocket, and basically this timeline shows you what we anticipate as we go forward, finalizing those drawings by the end of the year, and then in early spring of 2024 to have the total sufficient funds needed for the HVAC system. The HVAC system in of itself requires a 28-week lead time for parts, labors, and material, and it's quite an ordeal to shut down the streets and get a crane out and replace our unit on the main roof, and so it makes it a very costly project as well. But if we do start that order, I should say, in spring, then construction can take place in the fall after that 28-week lead period, and we can be on our way to celebrating Montgomery County's history with proper climate control as well, which is something, again, we desperately need. And I know we're also looking toward, obviously, the 250th anniversary of the county and the country, for that matter. And so having a state-of-the-art facility be able to take that celebration and properly show it to the world is extremely important. So having pieces like the HVAC system in place prior to 2026 is going to be extremely important as we move forward in order to be a true county museum, your true county museum, and sort of work toward that vision I talked about earlier as a premier regional cultural destination. So this is top of mind for us too as we work 2.5 years out. And this was actually brand new data that we just came across recently, generated by the tourism office. Now these blurbs here are not unique just to the museum, but we are certainly included in this data when they talk about a venue that has significance and importance to the community members. So what you see here is a majority of each one of these topics reflecting what it means to have a premier cultural institution here in Montgomery County, and that's something that we can play a role in facilitating as we go forward. So it's incredibly important that we maintain our systems and upgrade them as we need to in our old building built in 1964. So in conclusion, as I said, we've raised already for the HVAC system $225,000. We know the total amount for that HVAC system is going to be $400,000. That includes the drawings as well that are currently underway. So that difference is $175,000 in additional needed. And so we are here before you tonight to answer any questions in your consideration of a funding request. In your consideration of a funding request that is a one-time capital funding request of $100,000 to be put toward that main unit HVAC system and help us preserve the history and culture of Montgomery County. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I certainly appreciate your consideration.
Mr. Jenkins, thank you so much for that presentation. We'll go around the room, and we'll start off with Supervisor Shepherd.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. That's a great presentation for your need. I can surely see that, but I appreciate you doing it.
Thank you.
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
I think I kind of missed what you said about the, so is it a for sure thing that the Virginia Association of Museums is going to have their conference in Blacksburg in '25?
Yes, that's right. So we got confirmation just before Thanksgiving that they have, their board met to confirm that. So they will be coming to Blacksburg for the first time ever.
Are there any other museums even that come close to the Montgomery Museum further west of us?
West of us, the only one I can think of would be William King in Abingdon. It's an art museum, but as far as larger, like sizable institutions that are comparable to our museum, there's a lot of smaller ones that are out west in Southwest Virginia. And what this does, though, provides access for those museums to go to a conference that they may not have been able to reach if it was in Richmond or in Alexandria or somewhere in a larger metropolitan area.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor King.
Appreciate the presentation tonight, really informational. Just a question, have you went to the towns and asked them for donations on this?
So we have already approached the town of Christiansburg about this as well, and we also intend to approach Blacksburg about it at this time. So that's an in-progress request as well.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate y'all going out raising money before you come here.
Got to have some skin in the game.
Yeah,
Right.
I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Supervisor DeMont.
Thank you so much for your presentation and congratulations. I know it's a big, big deal to have this conference coming here. So huge congratulations on raising the profile of the Montgomery Museum here so that they want to come. What time of year is that normally held?
Yeah, so that's always in March. So this will be March 2025 that they come to
Okay.
Blacksburg.
And hundreds of people will be here. I'm assuming.
Hundreds and hundreds of people, most of which only know this area perhaps for football.
Great.
Nothing else.
Great.
So,
Well, thank
yeah.
you so much for your work to get them here.
Thank you.
I think that's a big economic impact. That's a big tourism impact, so thank you. I appreciate the request, and like Supervisor King said, I appreciate you coming to us with the request, with having already raised more than half of the money that you need through private donations. I think that says a lot about how the community feels about the museum and feels about supporting the museum. I would be interested in us having a follow-up discussion about this. When do you need to have a decision in order to be able to move your project forward?
So we know that if this request were granted, there's still $75,000 outstanding that needs to be funded for before the order's put in. So, we're looking at a sort of a final drop dead of this winter, generally speaking, to have everything we need in place so that we can accommodate that 28-week lead time that follows thereafter. So, ideally as soon as possible, but we're, especially within the winter season kind of being our hard set deadline.
Okay, and I asked that just I don't know that we could make a decision about a funding request like this tonight, but I asked that just to make sure
Yeah.
that, we know what your timeline is, so we know when we need to be able to talk about it and make a decision. Really appreciate the report and your work, and really appreciate your board members being here as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Biggs.
I too appreciate the support, and your report, and I've always supported the museum, and I will continue to do that. And I would support having our county administrator look to see if we would have any kind of available funding for this. I'm glad you're bringing back the music program for the children. That was really successful. I'm very excited about your conference coming in, because if you look at the economic impact and what that brings to the county in regards to the requests that you're asking for, I think that sort of evens things out, in my opinion. I'm really excited about your collections growing, and I think that, and I would just like to say that your leadership has really opened up a lot of avenues and a lot of events to involve folks that were never involved before. And I agree with Supervisor DeMott as far as the importance to the community. I think you've done a really outstanding job, and so I just want you to know up front that I am supportive of helping you with this, because HVAC is very important, especially when you have the collections.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Casey, too, I would just like to congratulate you on building a better community through your relationships, and just the money that you've raised, again, is a testament of the community support and all of the wonderful things that you have provided through the museum. And again, I understand, too, looking at, we have over 7,000 artifacts the museum has, and being good stewards of that and preservation, because Montgomery County, as part of our mission statement, is steadfast in our preservation of our history and planning for the future. So I am very supportive and would like to further discuss with the board if we do have some one-time funding money that could be used to this, because without this, it doesn't seem like you're going to have a museum, because you're not going to be able to preserve that history.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it's just, I'm so proud of the museum and the work, because it's basically become a hub for the community, encompassing everything, and we're so proud of that. So we do want to, especially with our 250th anniversary coming up in just 2 years, we do want to make sure that there are artifacts and that we do preserve that history. So I'm very supportive of this, and thank you for all the work that you've done with the community and just all of the good things. Nothing but good comments have I heard.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that a lot.
Board, any follow-up? Supervisor Fidzikowski?
Yeah, I'd like to add that, I really think the job you all are doing is really great, and I definitely I'm interested in supporting it, but it would be nice to know if there is some other monies that are available from the towns. I think they both contributed when you bought the building, didn't they?
That's correct. Well, in building capital funds, the town of Christiansburg did, and then Blacksburg came online a little later with operating funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there seems to be an interest there in both of the towns, and it would be good to know what that number is before we commit to a number, but definitely in favor of it. And like several have said, that we need to look to see where we would pull that money from. So I appreciate your presentation. It was very good.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Again. All right. We have 2 public hearings scheduled for tonight. The first one is a special use permit for May Applings LLC Child Care Center.
Good evening. So as stated, we have a request for a special use permit for a child care center. This site is located in the Prices Fork area outside Blacksburg. You can see here this star. This road is Thomas Lane that comes down, and then this is Prices Fork Road. Here's an aerial view of the property. The site is outlined in yellow. This red line here is a private road, Torrey Springs Road. This is Thomas Lane here where it makes the sharp turn, and this is Old Fort. Here is your zoning map. It is zoned agriculture A1, as is most of the surrounding area. The green that you see here is Montgomery Farms subdivision, and that is zoned residential. So Mayapple School was founded in 2015. They have since relocated in 2018 due to the construction of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. They relocated to Blacksburg in a rented space on Mount Tabor Road. Since that time, they have purchased this property in hopes to provide a new permanent home for the school. Their curriculum is centered on outdoor learning and play, so it does help if they are not exactly in the town, because they do like to do a lot of outdoor activities. The school provides childcare and learning for approximately 15 students at this time, aged 3 to 6, and they are open 8:30 to 3. Enrollment options are flexible, so they do have some half-day students and some full-day students. There are currently 19 households served, and with this, they will be able to increase their enrollment to 21 if they can get additional staff. So this project would include some interior renovations of the existing residential structure to accommodate the daycare students, and then they would create a parking area to allow pickup and drop-off. It is located off of Old Fort Road, so it is not accessed from the private Torrey Springs Road. They will construct a new inlet from Old Fort, and then they will utilize the existing driveway. There will be an installation of natural play components and a walking path. They will install new fencing as required, and then the propane tank will also be separated by a fence for security purposes that is required for their licensing. So here's their concept sketch. You can see the parking lot that they plan to construct here. There will be an entrance here on Old Fort, and then this will be a walkway constructed. This small parking area here is for handicap parking to meet ADA compliance. They will have a fenced area with play and rec area. Here is a zoomed in look at the proposed parking spaces. They currently have this access drive here, so they would bring cars in to park, walk their students up, and then they would exit through here. This is the view of the site showing the existing residential structure here in the background. And then this is a view from that structure looking back towards Old Fort. Here is the rear area that would be fenced in for the play area, and you can see the propane tank here, which would also be secured by fencing. In the distance here is Torrey Springs Road. As stated before, it will not be accessed by this use. Here is the driveway as it currently exists. The house is vacant and has been, as far as my understanding. This driveway serves another residence on an adjoining property, so they do not have a shared access. And then this is another look at the existing gravel drive to the house. This is a look, Old Fort, looking towards Thomas Lane and Torrey Springs Road, and then on the other side is looking towards Mockingbird Lane, and also where the West Hill development is currently being constructed. So with the projected future enrollment of 21 students, the use could generate up to 88 trips per day. That includes student drop-off pickup, and then also the amount of staff that would be coming in and out daily. There are no buses or other transportation methods, so this is strictly a parental drop-off and pickup. They do not offer bus service. Drop-off hours occur on a staggered basis between 8:30 and 9. The applicant has provided how that has tended to work in the past, with approximately 7 students between 8:30 and 5, and then 5 between 8:45 and 9. They do try to start class at 9, but occasionally they will have a drop-off after that time. Pickup occurs the same, also at those staggered rates, at 12 o'clock if they're a half-day student, and then at 3 o'clock if they're a full-day student. And the Board of Directors is also looking at making that staggering required in order to help alleviate some of the traffic issues. So traffic will utilize Thomas Lane. In the future, there will be a connection with West Hill subdivision, which will offer an alternate route. That subdivision is required to be developed prior to any residential lots being established along Montgomery Farms. They are working their way back through the subdivision, but they have not made it that far yet. We have spoken to the developer, and they do not have an anticipated timeline at this time. Thomas Lane has a current ADT of 1,700 trips per day. Old Fort has a current ADT of 400 trips per day. The parking area will be created off of Old Fort, and VDOT Residency has looked at it. They took no exception, but they did state a low commercial volume entrance would be required. The site is not located in a FEMA flood zone. There is minimal impervious surface to be added to the site, the parking area and the walkway. The handicap parking area currently exists as impervious surface because it serves the dwelling. So there may or may not be stormwater or ENS plans required, but that will be evaluated at the time of the site plan should this be approved. The property is served by private water and public sewer currently. However, the applicant has indicated that they do have access to public water and they will be connecting to that system. PSA has identified that there is availability in this area. There could be an increase in noise as the property is currently vacant, and we'll be adding approximately up to 21 children potentially to the site during the day. The curriculum is nature-based, so there will be a lot of outdoor play, so neighbors may hear children playing outside. The applicants have reached out to those surrounding property owners to discuss the impacts, and then, as stated, there has been fencing proposed to increase security. So as far as the comp encourages infill development within the proposed use is a viable use for a vacant structure. It does meet the needs of childcare in the county. We do have growing needs. This will allow some expansion of childcare should they be able to go up to the 21 students. While additional trips will be generated on Thomas Lane and Old Fort, the increase may be minimal. There will be that future connection to West Hill, which will provide an alternate route. And then with the staggered drop-off and pickup times, that does help alleviate some of the traffic. Conditions and actions by the applicant are proposed in an attempt to mitigate those impacts. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on November 13th. 3 members spoke during the hearing. We did have 2 that were not opposed to the use, but they were concerned about the existing traffic on Thomas Lane and adding additional traffic to that. 1 spoke in favor of the application and noted that he has been able to witness the current traffic situation at their current location and that there are not traffic issues and it does tend to be staggered. The Planning Commission recommended approval from a 6-2 vote. The 2 opposed stated traffic concerns as being the reason for opposition. The recommendation was with the following conditions. The site shall be developed in general conformance with the concept sketch. A basic site plan addressing zoning conformance with landscaping, screening, parking, signage, and other requirements shall be approved prior to the issuance of any permits. Hours of operation shall be 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Any exterior lighting shall meet dark sky friendly standards. Adjoining property owners were notified. We did run the legal ad in the news messenger and the public hearing sign was placed on the property. You should have received a comment submitted by a citizen in your packet. There may be others here to speak to you. And with that, I will conclude my presentation and take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. We'll go around the room, starting off with Supervisor Fidzikowski.
No questions. Thank you.
Supervisor King.
No questions.
Supervisor DeMotts.
I have some questions.
Okay.
Do they propose any signs as part of their application? Any, building identifiers or anything like that?
They have not submitted anything regarding signage, but they would be allowed under the zoning ordinance up to 50 square feet, I believe, for non-residential signage in an A1.
Okay. Kind of screening there at the parking lot where it's sitting right across Old Fort from the residence?
We would require screening because of the number of parking spaces that are provided in that parking lot. So we would require some exterior landscaping to be put around there. It would have to be set at a place where it did not limit site distance. And based on how the site is laid out and designed, once we get to the site plan stage, there is some flexibility if we have to allow some allowances, but we would want that screening between the parking lot and Old Fort as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Shepherd.
The only question I have is one that you just said you couldn't answer, and that's about the other access through West Hill and the timeline on that, because I'm already worried about that road because of accidents and, natural disaster. Trees fall across the road and somebody has a heart attack, you can't get to them. What happens if we have kids over there and something happens and we can't get to them? I'm just not, don't think I'm going to be for it. But I've had several people call me, complaining about it. But
yes,
and they don't show up here, and I've asked them,
Yes, I understand, and I wish I could give you a better timeline. The proffer was written so that way, once that area of homes was developed within West Hill is when they would have to put in that connection prior to approval of that plat. Well, I'm sorry, not the plat, the permits, but they have not given us a timeline. They've made it back towards that way, but they haven't quite taken that turn yet.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I know. Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Vice Chair Biggs?
I have a concern about the traffic, but I also wanted to ask, like, the hours that you presented. So nothing will happen after hours or on weekends on the property?
Correct. There is no proposal for that. They're limited to Monday through Friday, 8 to 3.
Okay, so.
Or 8 to 4, I believe, is what we limited to. Their classes run 9 to 3. So we said 8 to 4, and that gives them time to transfer students in and out.
Okay, so they wouldn't be having like school events on the weekend or,
The condition placed on the special use permit would prohibit that.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Hopkins, that kind of goes along with that question. If the time frame for the business is Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and no after school, after evening activities, then would there be a need for the outside lighting?
Most likely not, although I could see sometimes 4 o'clock is almost dusk. So maybe you might,
Cloudy,
I mean, it's
rainy.
kind of iffy. I would say that's why they stated in their application that no lighting was proposed. But I will have them clarify here in a few minutes if it includes the parking area will not be lit.
Okay. Any other follow-up, supervisors? No?
So
Thank you.
as stated, the applicants are here and they can answer any other questions you may have. And let me know if you need me to come back up. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Hello.
Good evening. My name is Haley Reynolds. I'm here in my capacity as the president of the board of directors for the Mayapple School. I'm also joined this evening by Melissa West, who is the founder and director of the school. I think the only question you wanted me to, or would need me to address, is the lighting. It's correct that we did not propose lighting in the plan because school hours end at 3, and so we don't ever use the parking lot at night, even though we're kind of allowing for that 4 p.m. for potential use. Our normal school hours end at 3, so there would not be a proposal for lighting at the parking lot.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, supervisors? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will open up this public hearing for the special use permit for Mayapplings LLC Child Care Center. I do not have anyone signed up for this special use permit, but if any citizen would like to come forward, you have 4 minutes to address the board. Seeing no one come forward, we will close that public hearing. All right, next public hearing, Ms. Hopkins again. Special use permit, DW LLC Rubble Landfill.
Yes, so this site is located just outside the town of Christiansburg, and it's shown here as a star. It's located right off of Interstate 81. You access it through Houchins Road and Brammer Lane, which is partially private. You'll see that on the next map. So you can see Brammer Lane comes off of Houchins Road here, and then it turns private right on this property. They will still be accessing the property from the public portion of the road. This is Interstate 81. This is the property in yellow. It is zoned agriculture A1, as is some of the surrounding property. The 2 blue parcels here are designated as M1 manufacturing. And then this here is residential zoning. It's a PUD res development, and it is for Walnut Creek. So just to reorient you, a rubble landfill is the use for disposal of inert fuel, and we define that as brick, concrete block, broken concrete, uncontaminated mineral or soil. It is basically physically, chemically, and biologically stable from further degradation. So it's not your standard landfill that you hear about so much about with trash and junk and debris. This is just inert waste. So currently we have a site plan that has received technical approval. Our ordinance allows you to do 15,000 cubic yards of inert debris fill by right in our ordinance. The applicant has discovered they need an additional 10,000 cubic yards, and they may need to extend their time longer than what our ordinance allows, so they're requesting a special use permit. That would allow up to 25,000 cubic yards and add approximately 6 months of time depending on the weather conditions. All the debris will come from Christiansburg Industrial Park, and it's a site owned by the same owner. So this is different from the previous request you've heard where it's a commercial operation and you have a variety of locations contributing to this site. This is coming from one site within the town that's owned by the same property owner, so it will not be open to the public. The property owner does plan to apply for a SUP for a campground in the future. You probably remember this came through to you as an AFD withdrawal request several months ago. The fill site is located in the center of that 46-acre parcel. So here's the site plan, and there's a lot of lines, so it's kind of hard to see. I'll try to point it out. But the dark black line here in the center is where the inert fill will be located. And then this is the access road that will access the site. All of this area up here is for runoff reduction. It's going to be conserved open space when they get through the planning. So here's a picture looking east, Brammer Lane. This is the private portion of Brammer Lane. You can see the interstate in the background. And then this is looking west. This is a portion of the public site, public property. And then this is the access road into the site. This area here is the fill area that they will be adding the inert debris to. They have already cleared some of the trees. And then here's an existing structure and the proximity to the fill site, which is right down here in this corner. The existing structure will remain. So this is a portion of the property that will remain forested and undisturbed. And we just wanted to show you kind of the lay of the land. So dump trucks will be entering and leaving the site. The average number of daily trips will not increase beyond the existing use that would be allowed. The traffic levels will be temporary as they are cutting the fill out of the industrial park site and bringing it here. There are no new roads proposed. The existing entrance accesses the site from Brammer Lane. Portion of that does lie within the town of Christiansburg. We have reached out to them. We have not received any comments back from the town at this time. VDOT did take a look at it since the entrance was on the public portion of the property, and they take no exception to continued use of the existing entrance as it is. The site does not lie within a FEMA flood zone area. Existing streams will be protected by a stormwater management plan, and approximately 10 acres of the site has recently been logged. All roads leading to the site are paved, and then the interior road is dirt. Activity will be limited to the normal working days and daylight hours. The nearest residence is approximately a quarter of a mile from the proposed site, maybe a little bit further. There is a security fence that they have placed in front of the property for security purposes and access. Lighting is not proposed on this site at all. So it is designated as rural in the 2025 comprehensive plan, and you can see that here. This area is in blue, light blue teal, is all designated as urban expansion, and then everything you see in purple is in the town of Christiansburg. So the comprehensive plan defines rural areas as areas of the county not generally served by public utilities, where ag and residential uses are predominant and should be preserved and stabilized. We may permit new non-agriculturally related institutional uses by special exception, provided it's compatible in scale with intensity. An additional 10,000 cubic yards of inert debris above the allowed by right use has minimal additional impacts, especially since it's not a public operation that's opened commercially. Impacts are further minimized by the supplemental regulations found in our code, and limits of the fill area are greater than 200 feet from the closest property line. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on November 13th. We had no members present to speak, and they did recommend approval of the special use permit with conditions on a vote of 8-0. These are the conditions they recommended. The site shall comply with the conceptual layout that was prepared and submitted. All boundaries of the approved fill area shall be adequately marked on the property and shall remain in place during the time that the rubble landfill is operational. The fill area shall maintain a minimum 75-foot buffer on all sides. If that is disturbed at any point, it has to be revegetated, and it may be accomplished with existing vegetation and then supplemental plantings as needed. The access road shall be maintained in passable condition at all times. A dust management plan shall be in place for the access road on site and should be provided prior to approval of the site plan. All permits from other agencies such as DEQ must be provided to the county prior to approval of the site plan. And hours of operation shall not exceed 8 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. A NERT field placed on site shall not be open to the public and shall be limited to that generated from the activities at the Christiansburg Industrial Park. Adjoining owners were notified. We did place the public hearing sign on site. Legal ads run in the News Messenger. We have received one inquiry. However, they had no concerns or objections. They wanted to know the nature of the request. We may have some folks here to speak. Otherwise, I will take any questions you have for me.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. Okay, we'll start off with our members. Supervisor King,
No questions.
Supervisor DeMonts,
No questions, thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd,
No questions.
Supervisor Fidzikowski,
No questions.
Vice Chair Biggs,
No questions, thank you.
and Ms. Hopkins, just to make sure I understand, so there would be required a 75-foot buffer around,
Yes, around the fill area.
and the closest house or property would be at least 200.
Yes, it's at least 200 feet from the property line. The closest house is a quarter mile, if not more, away.
Quarter mile. And it said that with a special use permit, there would be no increase in truck traffic. Do we know what the traffic rate is daily?
I do not know what the daily traffic rate is now. Once they start doing their 15,000 that they're allowed to do, it won't increase because it's all coming from that same site. So it's not like they're opening it up to others. That's why the daily traffic won't increase beyond what's allowed. It's just going to increase the amount of time because it could go on for at least 6 months more.
And by right, they could do 15,000.
Correct.
And this would not have any impact with the additional SUP for the additional 10,000.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Any other follow-ups?
Wonderful.
Ms. Hopkins.
Mr. Gay is here, as are the owners, if you have any questions for them.
Okay. Board members? Any questions? Okay. All right. We will open up this public hearing for the special use permit for DS LLC Rubble Landfill. I do not have anyone signed up, but if any citizen would like to come forward, they have 4 minutes to speak on this public hearing. Seeing no one come forward, we will close that public hearing. Okay. Public address. Board of Supervisors allows citizens to present comments on issues deserving of our attention during public address. All comments must be, each speaker has 4 minutes, whether speaking as an individual or a representative. All comments must be directed to the chair or other supervisors from the speaker's lectern at the front of the room. You'll begin by stating your name and address. Debate between speakers and members of the audience is not allowed. Speakers may leave any written statements or comments to the supervisors with the board clerk. Speakers will be judged out of order should that speaker engage in any personal attacks, use profanity or abusive language, or debate with the audience and not address the supervisors. Right now, I do not have anyone signed up, but if any citizen would like to come forward, you have 4 minutes to address the board. Seeing no one come forward, we will close public address. Addendum.
No addendum tonight.
Very good. All right. Do I have a motion to move into work session?
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. DeMonts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
So first we have School Zone Safety Program.
That's right. Brad St. Clair is going to come forward and present some information to the board tonight about legislation that the General Assembly has passed that focuses on reducing instances of speeding in school zones. And we wanted to present this information to you. If the program was adopted, it would be actually implemented by the Sheriff's Office. But we wanted to just take this opportunity to bring this to you and get some feedback.
Good evening.
Good evening. Like Angie said, I know this has been talked about some in various circles, and it's kind of been out and about for a little while. It's relatively new to Virginia, but we put this together just more as an informational presentation for the board to let you know that it's something that you can or the locality can do if it so chooses. And so we'll just go through it and give you that information now. Like I said, the purpose of it is more informational with respect to speed, volume, number of vehicles in the school zones that we have, as well as the speed, to discuss the opportunity that's provided within state legislation in 2020 under 46.2 882.1, and basically get direction from the board as to how, if you would want to proceed forward with more information or get more information on such a program. We received an analysis of some speed studies. Was from a vendor who came in and did surveys in 4 of our school zones in November of 22. They did a 5-day study. They did it during the AM and PM school zones at these 4 different localities. The Auburn School Zone on Roanoke Road, Eastern Montgomery on 460, there near the elementary high school, Bellevue Elementary on Peppers Ferry, and in Price's Fork Elementary School on Price's Fork Road. They recorded total traffic volume during those times, as well as what would be considered a violation. We'll talk more about that, if what code considers a violation. This kind of graph, I put together a graph from the data that was supplied to us with some pictures of the school zones, so everybody's kind of familiar with it. This is the first one I put on, is Roanoke Road. We all know it's right there at the in the school area right there. There's a couple convenience stores, bank. As you're coming from Floyd, coming into Roanoke is one view, and then going back out of the school zone is the other. You'll see in the Roanoke school zone, during the AM and PM, it's about 9% of the violators of the vehicles were in violation of what would be considered a violation, and that's defined as 11 or more. So if it's 25, they recorded it as a violation if somebody's doing 36 mile an hour. And that's state code, basically, is what it allows for. So you'll see that Roanoke's pretty congested in the mornings and the evenings during that. So, the problem there is not as drastic as you'll see in some other slides, but it's around 9% of the vehicles that came through during that time. Moving on to Price's Fork, you'll see it's kind of moving up a little bit. Again, this is there near the elementary school on Price's Fork Road, and you can see that the violations, there's a few more percentage-wise than you'll find in Roanoke, but still, as we go through the slides, you'll see that it gets a little increasingly worse. When you go to Bellevue, keep in mind this was conducted before the speed limit change on 114, so that may have a little impact on it, but that is a 25 zone, and you can see that 90% of the people, around 90% of the motorists coming through in the AM and PM were at least 36 mile an hour or more. And then when you go to Eastern Montgomery, it's very similar. Of course, that's 460. It's 2 lanes in each direction, east and west. And so, and it's also a 35 school zone, so we're up to 46 mile an hour before there would be a recorded violation. And you can see there, in the PM during those 5 days that 1,729 vehicles out of 1,772 were at that 46 mile an hour. So definitely you can see that there's a varying degrees of issue as you move through the different school zones in the county. So Like I said, in 2020, the legislature passed 462882.1, which allows local law enforcement agencies to implement school photo speed monitoring devices in the school zones for the purposes of monitoring the speed, capturing the speed, and they do such with photo speed monitoring devices. And basically that's defined in code as the use of radar or LiDAR along with a camera system. And I don't know all the technical aspects of it, but essentially, code defines and gives that ability. Also allows for local law enforcement to contract with a private vendor for the purposes of doing that, because most localities don't have that type of technology on hand to do that. It does define it as a civil penalty instead of a criminal violation. So it doesn't allow it to go on your driver's transcript or your driver's record. It's a civil penalty, just like a seatbelt. It's capped out at $100. You can't charge more than $100 per violation. And there again, it has to be at least 10 miles an hour and above. So that's 36 or 46 in our respective school zones before it would start registering as a violation. We talked about it. There's also the part of it being a civil penalty is it doesn't go against your insurance. So I think the part of that being is that they implemented this code section allowing this to be done without a law enforcement officer on scene writing a summons. So not being a criminal type offense, it's not going to impact your anybody that violates it, their insurance. As again, we talked about not all the technical aspects of it, but it does use either a radar or a LiDAR, which is a laser light detection and ranging to capture the speed, along with a very high sophisticated camera system. And that camera will focus on the license plate of the vehicle, capture that data, and then they have access to the inlets to get the data on who owns the vehicle. And that system is administrated typically by a vendor. Most localities, there are a few localities that do it on their own, but most localities don't have the resources to do it without going through a vendor. Once this is captured and it's sent to the vendor will look at the information that's provided them, the vehicle. They'll match up the description of the vehicle from the information they get back to the database. The date, the time, their software will do checks, and that vendor will send that, if it's correct, to the law enforcement agency in a batch of a serious time, and the law enforcement agency has to inspect it as well and sign off on it. Once the law enforcement agency signs off on it, then a summons is mailed to the registered owner of the vehicle or the leasee of the vehicle. That process under code does substantiate a rebuttable presumption that the owner or the leasee or the renter of that vehicle was driving the vehicle. We'll talk a little bit about, some options if you weren't. So the example would be if I loaned my vehicle to someone for the day or the week or whatever, and they were driving it through a school zone, and then I got a summons in the mail for a $100 fine. There are options in the code that allows me to go in. I can fill out an affidavit, mail it or take it to the clerk's office, and basically swear under oath that I was not operating the vehicle at that time, and I also have to inform them of who was. So if I loaned it to my brother or whoever, I would have to say, well, my brother was driving it during that time. I can do that by mail or the general district court, or I can go into court and testify under oath to the same thing. Those are provisions in code that allow me as the owner to not be held liable for somebody if they were driving the vehicle that I loaned them. It also gives you an option if your vehicle was stolen, obviously, and you had reported it stolen and somebody drove it through a school zone or was captured doing this thing, that you wouldn't be responsible for a civil fine under that circumstance. How do most of these programs get implemented? There's really no requirement in code as far as warning periods or advertisements or anything like that, but it seems to be in the research that I've done The standard practice is to try to do some education piece up front, whether it be mailings or handouts to parents through the schools, social media campaigns, press releases. You try to give a really good effort up front to let people know that we're getting ready to monitor these school zones with camera systems. They also have to be, according to code, they have to have a sign, something similar to what's in the picture here. It has to be in a conspicuous location so that motorists entering the zone see that you are monitoring that zone with some type of photo enforcement. So those signs have to be posted. And it's pretty standard, I think, to give some type of a warning period after you go live with the system, maybe for 30 days, that instead of an actual summons being mailed, it'll be a warning summons. So if someone drove through there and the system picked them up as a violator, they would get a summons in the mail that would say it's a warning, you were in violation, but they don't have to pay a fine at that point. And then after that, obviously, it would be a go live date that would be picked to move forward. Effectiveness, in Virginia, it's pretty new, so there's not a lot of data that I could find looking through. The vendor did supply some, one of which was with county, and you can see there from what was supplied to us, they had about 3,898 violations over a 5-day period, which they did a similar study like they did with us in 3 school zones. They had 3,898 violations. Some point later after they went live, they went back and did a follow-up, and it's reduced to 165. So it's a drastic decrease at that point. Chatham County, Georgia, also you can see the data there. They had about 10,700 violations during their 5-day pre-implementation period. Then 2 months after implementation, it had reduced to 972 citations. So that's a 91% reduction in speeding in that county in Georgia. And then there was a study I found through the Institute of Insurance Highway Safety Program. They did this in Montgomery County, Maryland, and they looked at zones that had some type of camera enforcement. And they found that during the time that they did that study, that you were about 59% less likely to speed in a zone that had more than 10 mile an hour over a zone that was monitored by a camera. And so it reduced speeding by 10 mile an hour and over by about 60%. And it also reduced fatal crashes in some other areas that were monitored by camera systems by around 20%. Of fatality and serious injury and crashes. So there is some data, and I think more will come in Virginia as time goes on, but there's data from other states that have had this around for a while that people were routinely seeing 60, 80, 90% reduction in speeding once the word kind of gets out and everything with the system being in place. Some of the programs that are currently active in Virginia include Chesapeake, Fairfax, Wythe, Bland, Smith, New Kent, Saltville, Bridgewater, Alta Vista, Fauquier, and Arlington. There are more, I'm sure. Those were just the ones that I was able to find in some research or that had been provided to me. Obviously with Wythe and Bland, Smith kind of being the closest to us. This must be the old one, but at this point I would open it up. Obviously if there's something that the board supported, it would be something that, the sheriff has brought this kind of up in some conversations, and that's part of the reason that we're here, is it's a program that he feels comfortable with. And although he can administer it and would have to administer it, I felt like that he wanted board's support if he chose to go forward with it. So we put this presentation together to come for you tonight. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Very good. All right, we'll start off board members. Supervisor DeMonts.
I have a few questions. First, thank you for your report. I know the vendor that has provided some of this information because at my request, they provided it to me as well.
Right.
And I think that they're a very high quality vendor. great salespeople, but truly believe in the mission of the work that they're doing. So I don't have any objections on the surface, just a couple of questions.
Sure.
You answered a little bit with the provision for a rebuttal. Can we touch back on that? And I'm thinking, I own 2 cars. I drive one of them. My college student drives the other one. He's far more likely to do something ridiculous behind the wheel than I am.
Right.
So if he was to receive a citation on his little car, what would the process be for me to say, because the bill is going to come to me,
Right.
and what would I do in that instance?
Yeah, you're correct. The bill would come to the registered owner of the vehicle. So if you were the registered owner of the vehicle that he was driving, you would get that summons in the mail stating on this date and time you were in a violation of this code section. You have, a couple options. One is you can fill out an affidavit and mail it in stating that you weren't, but he was. You can go to court, to the clerk's office, and fill out the same affidavit stating the same thing. Or you can have a hearing in court in front of the judge and do the same thing. But the code does specify you have those 3 options, but you do have to provide who the owner
Sure.
or the driver was at that time.
Well, yeah, I'd let him pay that fine if he
Right.
did something that stupid. Is there a way to make that process a bit more accessible? I don't know the last time I dropped something in the mail, but I do things online all the time.
Right.
Is there a way to make that a little bit more accessible for citizens that might not have time stamps, envelopes, et cetera?
Yeah.
Yeah, the code's specific on how what you can do, and it's either mail or with the affidavit or go in the court. So I would
So
say
it's the
online.
curse of
no.
enabling legislation is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
Okay, understood, thank you. And then, in the locations, I understand from speaking with the vendor that the town of Blacksburg, I believe, has also been having conversations with them related to the schools in town limits. At the locations in the county where we have schools, is there also available infrastructure that would be required? I don't know what the cameras need as far
Right.
as internet or power or, but is it feasible, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, all of that, if you choose to, and if you choose to move forward, I would be my recommendation to the sheriff or this board is to go with a vendor. That would be the vendor's responsibility to ensure that. But from the reading that I've done, a lot of them are either powered by, if there's power there, or they're solar. So there are multiple ways to accomplish getting the cameras and remote parts that may not have, electric power or whatever there on site.
Okay.
And so that's an option.
Great. I think that's all my actual, weighty, meaty questions. The last question would be, I do actually fully support this. I think it retrains bad behavior. And so, it's using a punishment as a tool to retrain. So we're driving cautiously in our school zones, which is the ultimate goal, to train drivers to pay attention and drive slowly in our school zones. How quickly can we do this? When can we start?
Well, we would have to go through, a procurement process potentially, either if there's a vendor that may have a contract that we could write off of, or we put it out for an RFP. We could look at that if we had that direction and get that process moving fairly quickly.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd.
I fully support this. I don't really have any questions on that. I do have one question, and I'm kind of joking, but I'm really not. Do they make a system that would go on the school buses for doing the same thing, passing the red stop signs? Because I can tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. That may be something you want to get with them on and see. I haven't seen that, but that is a good idea.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Yeah, I've got several questions. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer them, though. First of all, how many sheriff's office personnel would be required to review all these. I mean, we were looking at hundreds of violations in a daytime. Now, I'm sure after a few days, it's going to slow down, or I should say, after the first letters go out, it would slow down. But
Yeah.
is there any idea what that takes?
I think early on it would be rather taxing. I have asked the sheriff as recently as today, did he anticipate needing additional staff? And he said his goal would be to make it through that initial kind of upfront, and as it regresses back, he felt like he had staff in-house currently that can handle it. As far as the number of people initially, I'm not sure. It would be quite a bit of a workload. It does have to be a sworn deputy. It can't be a civilian staff. It does have to be somebody that's sworn to review that and sign off on it. So it would be, be some heavy lifting to begin with. But if the program is successful, which it's kind of shown to be, that workload should lighten up significantly as time goes on.
I think the big question is, where does the money go? Who gets the fine money? How does the vendor get paid? Those?
So that would be, depending on the vendor, I guess, what percentage they take. From what I've seen, it's usually like a 75-25 split, where the vendor takes a quarter of the fine and 75% of it comes back to the locality. That would be, a question or something for the board and county administration to kind of determine where that money coming back in. But keep in mind, that's, again, going to be regressive. So whatever comes in and maybe in the first couple months should drastically drop off as the program gets out and the number of violations decrease. So.
I would assume that the vendor is going to maintain the equipment, so if it was to go down, they would be responsible to repair it, or?
Yeah, that's the advantage of contracting with a vendor, is they're responsible for pretty much implementation, maintaining all the way through the contract period. So they're responsible for working with VDOT and getting the signs permitted. They're responsible for doing the speed surveys. They're responsible for installing the equipment to VDOT specifications. They're responsible for maintaining it. They're responsible for collecting the data, and they're responsible for submitting that to the sheriff's office for their review and then mailing the summons out. So pretty much they take every bit of it with the exception of the sheriff's office, their portion of okaying the summons to be sent.
All right, and when they collected this data, it was broken down into AM, PM. So
yes.
Again, I'm thinking it would be whenever the flashing lights are on, obviously. So it would just be that particular time. Mm-hmm. Some of those areas you showed, especially like Bellevue, do we know what the traffic number would be at that time? I mean, and I'm all in favor of everybody doing the speed limit in the school zone, and I'm not trying to make that argument, but are we anticipating huge backups on some of these roads, like Route 114 or even Price's Fork Road, which I think their real heavy travel times are a little bit later than at that time, but I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody else knows.
Probably earlier.
Yeah.
Earlier?
The heavier traffic is like from 6:45 to 8 o'clock, 8:30. So.
Okay, so the lights wouldn't even be on then?
Well, they would be at 8:30.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's just something to think about. If we implement something like this, which I'm kind of in favor of moving forward and looking into it a little bit more, it's very effective when you get one of those letters in the mail. Not that I've ever gotten one, but I may know somebody that has. But it's it's kind of like, that's something that would be good to know, that if we implement this and it really takes hold and it gets reduced like 80, 90%, what is that going to do with traffic? Is that going to create another problem down the road? Or, I mean, and that may be something, again, as we move forward, that we may want to look at that, but.
Yeah, definitely the system, from what I've read, the systems are designed, some of them even have integration with the school zone lights that trigger the system to come on. So it's designed to come on when the lights are on. If the lights aren't on, it's not going to be operating. So yeah, it would be the entire length of that school zone, from the time the lights are on to the time they're off, that it would be monitoring traffic for violations.
All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Supervisor King.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm all for it. Anything we can do to keep citizens safe, especially in the school zone. Yeah. So just a couple questions. On here it said $100 fine, civil fine, or
Yes, sir.
is that done by the state, or is that
So
what the state says you can charge?
the state code caps it at 100. That's the most you can charge for a single violation, is $100. Quite honestly, I mean, you could set it at less, but if you're going to try to do a vendor and procure a vendor, they're probably not going to do it for less than 100.
I wouldn't want to do it for no less.
Yeah.
As I said before, people remember them pieces of papers.
Right.
Yeah. And so that would be set up for the school zones, because on both sides,
Yes, sir.
like down Elston, you got traffic going both directions.
Yes, sir.
So it would be one on each side.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I appreciate this, and I'm all for it. Thank you.
Vice Chair Biggs.
Well, I'm going to be for anything that's going to increase safety for our students. And Supervisor Fidzikowski asked about one of the questions I had about the person power that you would need. So it sounds like the sheriff's office is okay with the amount of people that they have now, that they could, take off with the beginning of the program, because it's going to hopefully decrease. What about court-wise? Like, would it really impact the court system that much, or?
It shouldn't. Most of the data that you see, very few people challenge it. You get some up front that may, but after it kind of gets challenged a couple of times, traditionally there's not. It doesn't involve the court. People see it and then they pay it. It's a civil penalty versus a traffic summons. So you're not. A lot of people worry about the points on their license and what it's going to do to their insurance when they get a speeding ticket. Well, this doesn't have any impact on that. So it's less people coming to court to contest it. And once it's kind of made its way through a few cases, it typically doesn't have as many people coming in. So from what one vendor we spoke to, I think they had 2 or 3 people go to court. Violators end up go to court. So it's not a huge deal.
Well, I like the aspect of having the educational piece, so people know what's coming. I like the integration with the signs that are already up, so it would go off when, during those times before and after school. I like both of those. I did see someone stop today on Toms Creek Road, which is in Blacksburg, for doing the very thing that you're talking about, going through too fast. But the four areas that you've identified in the county are really, they're busy. And I could see how people just sort of buzz through there. I think I'm for it. Anything that we can do to help with school safety, I think is really critical. So thank you for your presentation and making us aware of it.
Mr. St. Clair, as a former driving school instructor, 24 years, I am all too, unfortunately, aware of these problems, and awareness, education, and enforcement is the way that you need to change behaviors, especially in our school zones. And when you're thinking about these areas, just even last year, working with the school system. We constantly got complaints, even after the speed change to 45 at Bellevue Elementary there, about people flying through, not slowing down during the school zones. So I am completely in support of this. Being that it's the civil penalty of $100 and it's not on any demerit points or goes against their driving record, I think that's very fair. Somebody is violating the law, and we're going to give them the opportunity, and then they can rebuttal it. Now, let me ask you, and Supervisor DeMotts, you might not know this question, but if she goes and signs an affidavit saying it was her son, are they going to go? Can they charge her son?
They can, yes.
They can.
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody's going to be paying, right? I don't have any other questions other than that. I think the whole purpose is it's a safety program. And I think after people get those citations, those civil letters, that will spread like wildfire. Shouldn't probably say that with a burn ban, but it will get people's attention to realize, and it's a way of enforcement. It's a good resource because unfortunately we do not, we were talking about having the manpower to review these. That is better money spent than having 3 or 4 officers in the school zones. And as a wife of a former state trooper, knowing that even when he was assigned to Falling Branch, you would have Christiansburg and state troopers working, people being pulled over left and right in a school zone and, you know, going 12, 13 over. That's just kind of crazy, I think. I understand it happens, but it's about keeping our citizens, our students, teachers, everyone safe in those school zones. So what I'm hearing from the board is consensus that everyone is for this program. So I think you have guidance to move forward with Sheriff to find out what the next steps would be for procurement or RFP for that.
Sure.
Absolutely.
We'll work with the sheriff to push that forward. And I did want to mention too, I forgot, I remissed a little bit, but it had been mentioned in a lot of the readings I did, concerns, and I think maybe I'll mention it tonight just so the public knows, but there's always a question about the data. What happens to the data? Who can access the data? Well, the code's pretty specific. If you pass through, that data that's collected can only be used for this purpose, for this violation. It can't be sold. It can't be disseminated. It is a crime if that happens. It's not subject to public information, and it has to be deleted. If there's no violation, you pass through, you're not speeding, it has to be deleted within 30 days. If you were speeding, you get a summons, it has to be deleted within 60 days of the time your summons is adjudicated. So it's not an infinite database that's completely hanging out there. It's not somebody could access it or get access to it to find out who's coming or going where. The code's very specific and it's very controlled. So I just wanted, for the public's information and the board's information, for you to know that.
Absent a court order.
Or a court order, yeah. It's like any other thing, if a judge issues an order for it, then they would have to release it. But that's with every record we have.
With our school systems, just thinking about our YOVASO programs. This is a great way that they can make awareness, youth against traffic safety, so youth for traffic safety rather. So that would go great with our school systems for promoting that and bringing more awareness as well.
Sure.
Okay.
Chair Blevins, can I ask one more
Certainly.
follow-up question? You bringing up the data cannot be retained made me think, what if we catch some just egregious violations? What if we catch somebody going 35, 40 over in the school zone? Is it the same? It's $100 civil fine? We
Yeah.
can't send Sheriff Parton out to...
No, there's no enhancement for.
Thank you.
The one exception to your question is if a sheriff officer is there to witness it,
Right.
Right.
even if that officer is using that system, they can then charge them criminally, but have to do it right there.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any follow-up? Supervisor King?
Just one more. On this presentation, it said 11 miles over. So you won't get a summons unless you're doing 12 over?
No, it's 10, so it'd be at 11. It says
okay.
it's 10, it's more than 10, so If it's a 25 zone, when you hit 36, you would hit the summons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any follow-up? Thank you, Mr. St. Clair. Appreciate the presentation. All right. Next up, Countywide Radio System Project.
Thank you. Jason Milburn is the Executive Director for the NRV Emergency Communications Regional Authority. He's going to bring a presentation to us this evening. And just to give you a little bit of background, the members of that, I know that you know, but for the citizens' sake, are Montgomery County, the towns of Blacksburg and Christiansburg, and Virginia Tech. And Jason has been working with his board on a regional radio infrastructure project for a while now. This was discussed even when the authority was not operational. We've known for a long time that we needed to look at this, and we needed to go through the process and get the authority up and running and well on its feet before we proceeded. Jason's going to present this plan to our board tonight, and then on December the 5th, Tuesday, he's going to present to both towns at their work sessions and provide this information for those folks, and then he'll present it to the Virginia Tech people after that. It is a very significant and important investment, and we wanted to make sure that the boards knew, the elected officials knew what was going into the project before it moved forward. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you very much, Angie. Just very quickly, a brief introduction to myself. I have a long history of public safety service here in Montgomery County. I served 22 years with Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, and all 22 of those years were in street-level patrol. Once I left Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, I went to the 911 Center, and I've been there just over 3 years now. So I have over 25 years of holding a public safety radio in my hand and talking on the Montgomery County Public Safety Radio Network. So I have quite a bit of experience, and I've seen a lot of changes throughout the Montgomery County radio system. A brief description of this presentation. I'd like to go through a little bit of history of the radio system and some of our issues we're facing and some of the ways we'd like to fix those issues. And then I'd like to take a break at that point and answer any questions or go over anything else. The second half of the presentation is where I will get into the financials and how we would cost share this project and that type of thing. A brief introduction of New River Valley Emergency Communications Regional Authority, or we call ourselves NRV 911 for short, since our full title is such a mouthful. We provide consolidated 911 and dispatch services for, as Angie mentioned, Montgomery County, the town of Blacksburg, town of Christiansburg, and the Virginia Tech campus community. So we handle all emergency and non-emergency phone calls that originate from all 4 of those jurisdictions. We dispatch for 4 police agencies. We dispatch for 11 fire and rescue agencies. We've been live since July of 2016, and our staffing, we are approved for 40 full-time equivalent communications officers and 6 administrative positions. That gives you an idea of who we are and how big we are. We do 2 main things at the 911 Center. We take phone calls in, and then we dispatch units out to calls for service. To give you an idea of how many phone calls we handle in 2022, we took 160,000 phone calls. And as a reminder, all those phone calls originated within Montgomery County and the 2 towns and the campus. All of those calls, 23% of them were emergency calls that came in on the 911 lines, which equates to just over 100 911 calls a day. Non-emergency calls are 52% of our calls, just about 225 a day. And outbound calls, which are calls we make, officers request us to call people, we have to transfer people or any other type of thing, about 40,000 of those calls a year, or 25% of our call volume. So we're on the phone a lot. The other half of what we do is, once we talk on the phone and figure out what a citizen or whoever needs, we have to give that call out to a field responder. And we call those calls for service. A call for service can be anything as simple as a citizen calling in asking for extra patrol in their neighborhood, all the way up to a motor vehicle crash that requires police, fire, and rescue, a house on fire, any type of situation can be a call for service. Our average calls for service a year are in the neighborhood of 120,000 to 125,000 calls for service a year. Those break down into 87% law enforcement based, 10% rescue based, and 3% fire department based. This screen, I wanted to start out with just a couple definitions. It's hard to talk about radio systems and radio projects without getting super technical, but I'm going to try my hardest to stay away from the technical land and be more in layman's terms. So a couple quick definitions. What is APCO Project 25 or P25? It is very simply the U.S. nationwide digital radio technical standard. It was developed in 1989, and its purpose is to ensure public safety land mobile radio interoperability and functionality. The idea is any public safety agency that's operating on a P25 system or with a P25 radio is much easier for them to interoperate with any other public safety agency. The idea is for public safety to be able to work together and help each other. No other radio standard is supported by federal grant funding, Virginia Department of Emergency Management, or state agencies. So there are other radio standards out there, but P25 is the only public safety U.S. radio standard. A couple other terms I wanted to bounce off of: analog versus digital. I want to date a few of us when I give this analogy, but if you remember the old original cell phone days, when you had your bag cell phones in your cars that you plug into the cigarette lighter, or you had the old Nokia brick phones, and they worked great in town, but as you went driving out Route 8, Route 11, and got further away from town, all you started getting was a bunch of static. And then static, 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 and then nothing, no more voice. That's analog. Okay? Digital is the cell phone of today. You talk to people, their voice is clear, and it just works until all of a sudden you don't have any service and then it quits working. So that's a very simple analogy for analog versus digital. Conventional versus trunked. A conventional radio system, one frequency equals one channel for one agency. So it is a very inefficient use of resources. A trunked radio system, the channels become virtual, so your frequencies are shared among the channels. As an example of what we'd be looking at in Montgomery County, right now in Montgomery County, we have 70 licensed frequencies that we use, and some are in use, some are not in use in public safety. If we went to a trunked radio system in Montgomery County, that would become 6 licensed frequencies because of the way the computer shares the frequencies among all the talk groups and all the channels. Last term I wanted to hit on frequency bands. We have at one point or another in Montgomery County been in all 3 frequency bands. VHF is in the 150 megahertz range. VHF works really good outside. It goes long distances. It does not work good inside of buildings at all. It gets blocked by buildings. UHF is a middle of the road. And here in Montgomery County, we're in the 450 to 460 megahertz range. It still works good outside, but it also works good in buildings. When you step up to 700, 800, which is the newer public safety range where the FCC has asked us all to try to go to live and given us plenty of room, 700, 800 is actually also considered UHF, but it's just a little higher band, and it has slightly better building penetration. So, where did this concept all come from? This whole concept was born from the findings of the 2007 Virginia Tech shootings report to the governor. And the quote there was taken directly out of the report. Montgomery County, Virginia should develop a countywide EMS, fire, and law enforcement communication center to address the issues of interoperability and economies of scale. Some of the problems that were seen that day, we had rescue agencies that were on different radio bands, could not talk to each other. Law enforcement officers could see each other from one side of the drill field to another, but they could not talk to each other because they didn't have each other's channels in the radio. So part of the governor's report was making suggestions for how we can work better together and come up with better responses to public safety emergencies. Of all the communication difficulties that were pointed out, most of them revolved around interoperability and units that responded not being able to talk to each other. There were some difficulties with 4 different dispatch centers giving different directions to different public safety responders. So different responders were told to stage in different locations because there wasn't enough information sharing going on. So the radio system project ended up being postponed for financial and other reasons while work continued on the consolidated dispatch project. And as I mentioned before, that went live in 2016. Have we asked for advice on how we can fix this problem? Yes, we have 3 different times. There's been 3 different consultant studies performed. In 2010, RCC consultants did one for Montgomery County. In 2019, Federal Engineering did one for NRV ECRA. And in 2023, CTA consultants out of Lynchburg did another one for NRV ECRA. The consultant studies all had a little bit of different things in them, especially the RCC study. And a lot of the things from the RCC study have been fixed because they were band related, where we were in different bands. But all 3 studies recommended a P25 compliant trunked radio system to be shared by all the stakeholders. So we've asked for advice 3 different times, and all 3 times we've gotten the same advice. What are the goals of the regional radio system? Number 1, preserve and improve current interoperability while upgrading to digital technology. We have a great level of interoperability right now among all of our responders. Between law enforcement, fire, and rescue, they all work together seamlessly no matter where the call is, and it is not unusual at all on a daily basis to have town units helping county units helping town units, and all over the place. So we want to preserve their ability to interoperate with each other and talk to each other. We want to address ongoing issues of capacity, coverage, clarity, and lack of security. I'll hit on each of those very, very quickly. Capacity is just the number of channels you have, the number of users that can talk on those channels at the same time. At this point in time, we are beyond our current capacity to the point that we have been turning channels off. We've been turning transmitters off on some channels because we're interfering with ourselves. And I'll get into some of those issues later in the presentation. Coverage is just where your radio works. It used to be we only had to worry about whether we could do outdoor coverage and cover the whole 389 square miles of Montgomery County. Our coverage issues have changed with buildings. We have a lot larger buildings now, so our coverage issues have changed more from outdoor coverage to indoor coverage problems. Clarity is just the lack of static on the transmission and lack of security. Right now, we have an open access radio system. So anybody with $30 and an Amazon account or an eBay account can buy a radio, program it with information on the internet, and be talking on one of our law enforcement channels within about 30 minutes. So there is no security on our current radio system. A digital system would fix that. Coverage issues have become worse with larger buildings and modern construction. We're seeing larger buildings, especially in the towns and on the campus. In the county, some of your larger buildings are your schools and your hospitals, which are your very important buildings to everyone. Modern construction techniques where we're trying to be more energy efficient. Radio waves are energy. So if you're blocking energy from going into or coming out of your building, you're also slowing down your radio waves and blocking your radio. So we do need to be energy efficient, but just understand it hurts your radio system. So you got to make up for it in another way. Agencies have been asking for added features that only come with digital, such as encryption and GPS location. As it is right now, if a first responder gets on a radio and starts yelling or asking for help somewhere, we really have no idea where they are. We rely on them to tell us. Our radio system, some of our radios are capable of transmitting GPS. Our radio system will not receive GPS. So we have no idea where people are when they're talking to us. Population growth has led to more calls for service and more communications volume. I know this board deals with growth almost every single meeting with all the new bedrooms, 500 new bedrooms coming in Prices for community, looking at the towns and great big new apartment complexes every summer when you come back in town. So Montgomery County is growing, and I don't think any of us anticipate a lack of growth anytime soon. The magnitude of a project like this dictates that it is done cooperatively or regionally, just for the size of the project and to make sure that you don't hurt your interoperability with each other. I'm going to skip ahead one slide. What I have here, I have some audio files that I want to play for everyone. This first one is what I call interference audio, and these are all recordings of multiple units talking at once. On a trunked radio system, it is not possible for more than one person to talk at once. Once one person pushes the button to start talking, anybody else that pushes the button gets bonked out, and they get denied. So that way, whoever pushes the button first gets their message through, the channel clears up, and then the next person pushes the button, gets their message through. With our current analog radio system, everything works so slow, it takes at least a half a second. From the time you push the button, you have to wait at least a half a second before your transmission can start. It takes that long to get everything spun up, all the data moving, for everything working. What that causes is field units more than one of them will push the button up at once. Nobody knows other people pushed the button. They'll start talking. They think their message got out. In reality, nobody's message got out. And I'll play some examples of those for you. This first one was an interstate, I-81 interstate crash with fire and EMS.
Traffic coming. I was going to check it before I got on, but I'm going south. It's traffic coming down.
Yeah, 4 lane and right shoulder are going to be blocked.
2 or 3 units at once. I have no idea which lane is blocked because it all got covered over each other. All of these recordings are all within Montgomery County and all taken off the NRV logging recorder. Next one's Christiansburg Police Department.
NRV, there was 2 units at once. 160, were you advising you were going to be en route? 10-4 to Park Street. 10-4, 160, have you en route? Park Street, 936.
The dispatcher there is struggling trying to sort out exactly who's doing what. Town Fire Department.
South Main, you South Franklin. Is it South Main Street, Blacksburg?
Again, 2 or 3 units talking at once, no idea what any of them are trying to say because they all scramble each other.
Is there another unit that can assist 412?
Brandon 1. Is in route from TV.
218 and 391 spoke at the same time. Right, 218, are you going to be en route? Got it.
I can be from PD. 218, I'm only a couple minutes out. Be good 1022. 10, NRV direct.
NRV is direct. NRV to 391 and 412. Just be advised that it did get physical. There was a physical fight at one point. RP is refusing EMS. She says there's no weapons.
Again, it was a pretty important call, physical fight that officers were trying to get dispatched to. Town Fire Department.
My caller said that it was going to be right in front of the new Chick-fil-A on North Franklin as if you're approaching the Pepper Cherry light.
Looking at the front part here, just before the light headed back into town.
I'm coming across the hill, Brandon.
Just a moment. Yeah, right.
I'm coming across the hill here, Brandon.
35 NRV 10-3.
Intervening Montgomery 35. Can you repeat your last traffic cut off? Last traffic, I did not copy a single thing.
Hold the radio.
Intervening Montgomery County, hold the radio.
None of those units did a single thing wrong. Nobody failed in their training. Nobody did anything wrong. It's the limitations of the system. Everybody's pushing the button at the same time. They don't even know it, and that's the result of it. You can also hear the frustration in the dispatcher's voice and in the responder's voice because it frustrates them when this happens and they have no idea why their message didn't get across. The next audios I wanted to play was interference that we're facing in the UHF band. So there's a reason that we're looking at leaving UHF and going to the 700, 800, and that's because the FCC has made us a nearly guaranteed place to not have interference because it is just for public safety and it is very protected. This first one is a recording of the Christiansburg Police Department channel, and NRV was giving out a commercial structure fire at a major business in Blacksburg, and I'll just let you listen.
164 NRV.
164.
I'll be going out to Pops Lane.
10-4, thank you.
Blacksburg fire. Christiansburg fire. Blacksburg structure fire. Wolverine at 3175 State Street. 2175 State Street. Wolverine, cross street. Operate BFC 1. 1420.
So that was basically self-interference. We don't know why it happened, but our fire channels basically overrode the police department channel and locked up the police department channel during that transmission, so they couldn't do anything with it. Part of the reason those things happen is our dispatching methods. So all at the same time, we're setting off 2 fire departments, a rescue squad, all on different frequencies, all from the same tower. So you have all these transmitters blowing all this energy out all at one time because of the way we need to dispatch. The next one's Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, I can hear that. 38, are you for sure taking Bell, Jim? Yes. Okay, your radio is incredibly unreadable. I copy 10-4 to Lewis Montgomery.
Christiansburg Police.
Lots of background noise, 10-9. 190, I copied it was you, but still lots of static feedback. 10-9. 10-41. 10-4, copy 10-41. Still lots of static and background noise.
That one was simply a police officer trying to mark on duty for the shift, and it took 3 transmissions to try to get that through. The next one is Sheriff's Office, and this is the only one I edited out of all these clips. The reason is it had a social security number in it, and we, police officers, frequently broadcast social security numbers, dates of birth, names, addresses, all those over this open public access radio frequency. And that issue would be solved by encryption, where you can encrypt the traffic coming from the officers so the public can't hear it.
That's not a good service, 27. 62. Something like this. 2306.
That's where I blocked the social out.
718. Hey.
And you can hear there's some other frequency coming in on ours on the Sheriff's Office channel. We don't know what it is.
We're 10-8 off. See you right? 10-4. NRV, is there someone else using our channel?
It appears so.
62 only seems to do it when you're keying up. I just heard it with 33 as well. I'm not sure what's going on.
Even the deputies can't figure out what's going on. They can hear other people talking. They don't know who it is or what's going on. This next one is cross-channel interference, which is also self-interference between Tech Police Department and Blacksburg Police Department on the main channels.
130 over. Last unit with traffic, can you 10-9 please? 130 over. 130, go ahead.
Can you show me out 10100 Southgate and Old Dairy Road with the subject line of drone?
10-4. NRV, Tech 130, 30. I'm not sure what's going on with your radio. You're coming across Peck and Blacksburg.
Again, frustration in both the dispatchers and the officers always not understanding why this is happening or what's happening. This final one in this group is a tech police officer trying to transmit from the magistrate's office here in Christiansburg.
Tech 125, Denver.
125.
I am clear New Horizons and route back to Kansas.
I do apologize for all the noise in here, but that is exactly what the dispatchers are listening to, and it's in their ear. I'll play a couple of these, the next recordings, and they just show this analog static that we get on some transmissions.
584, I apologize. Go ahead. 27, Alpha 63028151. Again, Alpha 63028151. Right. So now, LFD 28. Going to be out of Texas. November X-ray 7460. And XY 7460 Texas.
I can barely understand anything the officer said on that one. So I know he was given a driver's license to run, but that's about all I do. And the last one I'll play here is Tech Police Department. Oops.
Interview Virginia Tech 137. Were you trying to reach me? Just to be up, there's a lot of static. I can barely hear you.
Tech 137 RV, I'm code 4. I apologize. It's in the magistrate's office. I was trying to let the security center know that we have that vehicle working.
10-4, thank you. I figured. I just wanted to verify.
Security center's direct.
Analog versus digital local testing. We had the opportunity to do some testing early last year to be able to see what difference we would see with digital radios. The way we did this is we went to these locations, we stood in one spot, we talked on analog channel, we changed the channel on the portable radio standing in the same spot and talked on the digital channel. And this is P25 digital. We obtained a test license to do this, is how we were able to do it. So we had a very short time frame to do these testing on the test licenses. The way the recordings are set up is each recording has the analog transmission, a short second break, and then the digital transmission right behind it. And as you'll see, a lot of the testing we did was in the most important critical buildings that we have, which are the schools, hospitals, and that type of thing. First one's Auburn Middle School inside the SRO office.
Auburn Middle SRO office. Auburn Middle SRO office on digital test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Analog versus digital, same location, same radio, same everything. Shawsville Middle School, again, inside the SRO office. A lot of times the SRO offices are located central in the school, sometimes in a small closet, no windows, one door, so they're very difficult on radio signals.
Charlesville Middle School SRO office, digital P25 test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Does one sound slightly better than the other? Auburn High School in the Alpha Wing hallway.
Auburn High School Alpha Wing, analog test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I was gonna have to take.
Auburn High School Alpha Wing hallway, digital test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Korean Hospital in the emergency department.
Test 4, 5, 5, 3, 2, 1. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. ARC 4 from radiology in the ER.
McCoy area, outdoors, not inside any kind of structure. Oops.
Radio says 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, portable, Big Falls Road, Giles County line. Radio test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, B25, Big Falls, Giles County.
Let's see, Bow Hill Road in the pilot area.
1800 block of Bow Hill, 1, 2, 3. 1800 block of Bow Hill Road, past the second bridge, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Norris Run and Lick Run intersection in the McCoy area.
We're at the intersection of Lick Run. The intersection, Lick Run, Norris Run, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And finally, inside the inn at Virginia Tech.
Same location, first floor, Virginia Tech Inn, digital 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
If you could barely tell on that one, but the digital was just barely starting to break up on it. So it was a very difficult location to cover. And that's why on the analog side, you could not even get a voice in over the static. Okay. So when the consultant did the study, they reached out and spoke to all the stakeholders, which is every police, fire, and rescue agency in the county and the towns and the university. And this is the map of radio issue, coverage area issues that the stakeholders reported. The red circles are ones that were reported by fire and EMS. The yellow circles are the ones that were reported by the dispatch center. And the blue circles were the ones that were reported by law enforcement. Couple little points I was going to bring up on this. If you noticed, a lot of our coverage areas are in the far corners of the county. And the other thing about the far corners of the county is they are underserved by cellular service as well. So the same places that we have limited radio signal, there's also very limited cell service. So there aren't many options. In the northwest corner of the county, I want to specifically mention Longshop. It seems like every time I talk to the fire and rescue chief at Longshop, they're asking when we're going to be able to do something to fix their radio system. For decades, they have had issues down there with coverage, and especially every time they have a rescue on the river, they have almost no communication because hardly anything works down there. The top issues that need resolved. Historical and new coverage area issues throughout the county, towns, and university. System capacity. The current system is exceeding the channel capacity. The reason we know it's doing that is because we are facing so much self-interference. We have added so many things that we're hurting ourselves in the UHF band. The other thing I'll add about system capacity, with a trunked radio system, it has a lot of room to add new users. So you can build it for public safety who you want to now. If down the road you want to add transit to it, you want to add public works to it, you want to add PSA to it, it's a matter of just buying radios for them and figuring out what the cost share might be on that. So the newer systems are very expandable. The clarity of audio transmissions. We want to prevent the responders from talking over each other, leading to missed messages. We're fighting continuous outside interference and self-interference in the UHF band. We have a lack of features, including encryption, GPS location, emergency buttons, and Wi-Fi cellular. The newer radios will take advantage of Wi-Fi and cellular, where if you're inside of a building, the building has Wi-Fi, you're hooked up to it, the radio can transmit over the Wi-Fi if it does not have a signal from your radio system. So the newer radios have a lot of optional features that can be added. With emergency buttons, law enforcement, all of our law enforcement agencies have emergency buttons. We don't have GPS, so we don't know where they're at. On fire and rescue radios, we do not have emergency buttons on any fire and rescue radios in the current radio system. Emergency button is a press and hold one button that sends an emergency message to the dispatch center that you need help without you having to voice it. There's a mixture of soon-to-be outdated or unsupported radios among some agencies, and this is really a mixture among law enforcement, fire and rescue. Some have updated radios, some haven't. Some are waiting to see what the path is going to be because they don't want to waste money, so that's kind of where we are. This was taken straight out of the consultant recommendation, and I won't sit here and read every one to you. Their recommendation, the best fit for Montgomery County, was a countywide P25 Phase 2 trunked simulcast radio system. I didn't say what simulcast was really. All it means, if you have 10 sites, all 10 sites work together when you push the button to figure out which is the best signal, and then it rebroadcasts the message. So it just means that all your different sites all work together for the same mission. The risks of doing nothing are an inability to upgrade existing equipment failures, continued interference, inadequate coverage, limited capacity, limited operability, and increased maintenance costs. And the benefits of action are all the goals of this project that we've talked about. Just as a reminder of our local census figures, and these are taken from 2020, and I understand they're not perfect, but it's what I had to work with. So Montgomery County, all in all, is floating right in the 100,000 people mark, 389 square miles of territory. Town of Blacksburg, around 45,000 people, 20 square miles. Christiansburg, 23,000 people, 15 square miles. Virginia Tech campus community, a little over 9,000 students and 4 square miles. And that leaves 350 square miles of unincorporated Montgomery County and 31,000 citizens in there. What have we done, or what have other localities done, and how do we compare to other localities? This slide shows major universities in Virginia and the radio systems that they are on. My understanding is Virginia Tech is the second largest public university in Virginia. Is that the last information I saw? Right around 35,000 total students, and we are still on an analog conventional radio system. I believe all the major universities are in there: GMU, VCU, UVA, ODU, JMU, Liberty, William and Mary, and that takes you down to the less than 10,000 student mark, where you hit Radford University on an analog conventional system. And then you have some even smaller universities that are on digital systems. University of Richmond is on the Richmond-Chesterfield system. Washington and Lee and VMI are both very small universities, but they're both on a Rockbridge regional trunked radio system. To give you an idea of how other jurisdictions have tried to solve this problem in Virginia, these are some existing radio system partnerships. Rockbridge County, Lexington City, Buena Vista, and VMI, 38,000 population. That system went live around 2016. The Region 2000 system, Bedford County, Lynchburg, Town of Bedford, Amherst County, just shy of 200,000 people. It was first implemented in 1996, and they did an upgrade in 2014. In 2020, Campbell County joined that system as well. Rockingham County, Harrisonburg City have a joint system together. Page County just jumped in with them this last year. Albemarle County, Charlottesville, UVA are on a joint system together. Fauquier, Culpeper, Rappahannock on a system together that was first built in 2006 and went from Phase 1 to Phase 2 in 2018. Even small jurisdictions have done it. Allegheny County and Covington City, serving about 21,000 citizens, are on a trunked radio system. Augusta, Stanton, and Waynesboro are in the final process of building out a new radio system, 125,000 citizens. And then one of our closest neighbors, Roanoke County, Roanoke City, Salem, Franklin County, that original radio system was formed in 1998, so they have been doing this for a long time. When it was first formed, it was an analog system. It went digital in 2009, and just recently they're working on upgrading from Phase 1 to Phase 2 in P25. So that gives you an idea of what other jurisdictions in Virginia, smaller and larger than us, have done. This is the point where I was going to take a breather and talk about anything we wanted to talk about or questions about the information that's been presented so far.
Thank you. We'll go around the board. I think, first of all, I can just see the expressions and read the boards. This is a critical I think we could all agree on that. Supervisor Shepherd?
One statement you made during in the beginning. So if with this P25, if you key the mic and I key the mic, you get in first, you're talking. Do I know you're talking?
Yes, because your message starts coming through my radio. So, yes. So the person who keyed second will start receiving the message.
We'll start hearing you.
We'll start hearing, yes.
That's all I have.
Supervisor Fidzikowski?
I understand it 100%. Lived it, did it, so I get it. No questions.
Supervisor King?
I'm like Supervisor Steve here. I understand it because I run calls and I hear it all the time. I appreciate you coming up here.
Thank you, sir.
Supervisor DeMotts?
Just one question. Giles, Pulaski, Radford, are they all on the analog or conventional system? I know you said Radford University was.
Right. Giles is on an analog conventional system currently. Floyd County is in the process of trying to go P25 conventional. Craig County is trying to go P25 conventional. Radford City is going towards a different radio standard currently with Pulaski County.
Everything you've said so far leads me to believe that we're on the right path. 3 advisors have suggested it, so thank you for the presentation so far.
Vice Chair Biggs?
Well, I was around April 16th, 2007. In fact, we had a board meeting here, and after that, we were made aware of the communication problem, and of course, it came out in the reports, and that's 16 years ago. And I think that, you know, our responsibility as a board to our county citizens, one of the greatest responsibilities, the top responsibility, public safety, you know, protecting our citizens, answering emergency calls, is critical. And I guess my response to this would be, especially, you know, as we said, the population is growing. I want to have a plan. So how can we achieve this? I know it will be costly, but to me, you know, the return on investment for our citizens is what we're really looking at here. And so I would be in favor of looking at how we could go about putting this into place. That's why I feel that strongly about this. And I want to thank you. I learned so much tonight, especially listening to those calls. I don't know how. I just don't even know how you deal with that. So thank you very much for what you presented, and I'm hoping that we can move forward in some manner.
Jason, I'll just echo Vice Chair Biggs and some of the comments at the board. I think we're all we realize it's critical. Vice Chair Biggs just said public safety. How can you be effective and do your jobs? And the frustration, and I know with our board members here that do emergency, retired police officers, and with our fire Supervisor King, thank you for this presentation. Thank you for the time for us to listen and for the public to listen how bad it is. You're trying to help, and communication is not there, not clear communication. I'm just thinking as a wife of a police officer, how frustrating if someone needs help and you can't even identify where they are or get clear information or misinformation. And when seconds and minutes count, our duty is to make sure we're providing for our first responders and for our citizens. This is delay time when you can't get good information or clear information, and for everybody to be, and what I'm hearing too is that to best work together. Everything needs to be uniformed. Everybody needs to be on the same radio station. We need to have the best, most, and how quickly does this information get outdated? How much this new P25, is it something that changes often, or?
It's remained basically the same since 1989. So the only difference is there's been technology advancements where it's gone from phase 1 to phase 2, but everything is still backwards compatible. And that's the idea with P25 is they implemented it, a one-time standard that would always be backwards compatible. The only difference between phase 1 and phase 2 is it allows your frequencies to be split in half. And so it gives you double the talk capacity with the lower number of frequencies. And that's why we would be able to get by with maybe only 6 or 7 frequencies here when we currently have 70.
And Supervisor DeMotts, you had mentioned about other localities. I know at some of the greater Montgomery liaison with our other localities, we've talked a little bit about when we do regional approaches, if there was a major disaster or something, that is a concern that we all need to be compatible as well. So I guess the next step is tell us how to go forward, a path forward.
The next part of the presentation is much, much shorter, and where I'm going to get into the cost breakdown, the finances, and how we may be able to make this happen.
Sir.
First of all, I wanted to give everybody the rules, the methodology that we used on these cost breakdowns. The cost that we used assumes the full list price of the project based on the consultant estimates, because we wanted to use the worst case scenario price so we could it's easy to come down, it's hard to come up with more money. The radio infrastructure, the connectivity network, the physical facilities, and the contingency costs are all cost share split by the predicted future infrastructure percentages. So we take how much infrastructure the jurisdictions need to make the system work for them and apply it to those sections of the project. This includes a town, county, fire and EMS adjustment based on call jurisdiction. So if a town fire department goes into the county to handle a call, that is already taken into account in these numbers. All 4 jurisdictions share the dispatch center equipment, the spare fixed equipment, and the consulting fees equally at 25% each. Each jurisdiction is allocated their specific subscriber and spare subscribers. All a subscriber is a radio, either a handheld or a car-mounted radio. So each jurisdiction is in charge of how many of those they buy, which tier they buy, and that type of thing. So it leaves control back to the jurisdictions. This assumes that 2 new sites will be required in the north, and that those sites would only benefit Montgomery County calls or agencies. The reason we say that is because those sites are in the far northeast and northwest corners of the county and will primarily only benefit Montgomery County citizens, Montgomery County calls, even though all these jurisdictions, if they ended up in there helping us, their radios would work also off those towers. So those are the rules on how we work the finances out. To give you an idea of what we have currently, radios, between the 4 jurisdictions, we have over 1,500 radios among everybody. When you break those down, Montgomery County is 35%, Blacksburg 32%, Christiansburg 22%, Virginia Tech about 10%. Those are all based on the consultant's numbers that she gathered directly from the stakeholders. So they're not 100% accurate, but they're very close estimates. When you look at the percentage of infrastructure, Montgomery County ended up with 49% of the infrastructure, Blacksburg 19% of the infrastructure, Christiansburg 20%, and Virginia Tech just over 10%. Estimated costs. So there's 3 different columns on this. The left column is the list estimate, and those are the costs that we used for all of our numbers and cost shares that we worked. The middle column is a negotiated estimate, and that's based on the consultant's experience, what she thinks we could negotiate this radio system down to. The final column is the competitive estimate, and the consultant believes this is going to be a very competitive project among bidders because we are essentially the last major university in Virginia needing a radio system. We are also one of the larger groups of jurisdictions that do not yet have a digital radio system. So they think that there will be a lot of competition for this. However, I didn't want to rely on those numbers. I wanted to rely on worst case scenario, so that's why we relied on the $21 million figure. The proposed cost share formula. The 911 board had multiple work sessions and meetings and discussions. about ways, trying to slice this cake up 30 different ways and figure out what was equitable for the jurisdictions, what made sense, and what was defensible in the numbers. As we work this out, I will focus on the Montgomery County column on the left-hand side. As you can see, those first 5 categories of equipment, Montgomery County holds 49% of the infrastructure, so that ended up 6.7 million on those categories. Look at the green shading, which is all the categories that were split 25% among the 4 jurisdictions. Down in the bottom in the blue shading are the radios, and the radios again are controllable by each jurisdiction on what they actually want to purchase. And that's based on what the stakeholders told the consultants that they own when they did the study. The project total for Montgomery County would be $9.3 million, the list estimate, which gives Montgomery County a little over 43% of the total project. When you look at the other jurisdictions, Christiansburg would hold a little over 21% of the project. Blacksburg would hold a little over 23% of the project. The main thing driving them up was an excess amount of radios compared to other jurisdictions. Virginia Tech would hold a little over 11% of the project. How would we pay for this? So through financing. NRV ECRA would hold the bond or other financing for this project that would keep from affecting the, the bond status of the other jurisdictions, the other localities. The cost estimates on here do not include interest on the bond. This would require an MOA type document with each locality just agreeing that they're going to repay the debt service for the project. The bond repayment terms would be per the recommendations of the financial advisor. So we'd rely heavily on the financial advisor that services the local jurisdictions and see what they recommended as far as how long to term the bond out for. And the thing to keep in mind is this is absolutely an infrastructure project, and the equipment lifespan that we're buying here lasts anywhere from 7 years to 30 plus years. Finally, a projected timeline if we decide to move forward with this. So as Angie mentioned early on, in December, the same proposal is going to both town councils. Ideally, sometime in the first quarter 2024, there would be a consensus to move forward with the project. During the year of 2024, the RFP process and the debt issuance would occur. Ideally, December 2024 would be contract signing. The system build time on a system like this used to be 24 months. It is now 30 to 36 months. And that puts us at, if we follow this projected timeline, we would not be accepting the system and turning it on until August of 2027, about 4 years from now. So it takes a long time to build these out. And as I promised, the financial section was much shorter.
Yeah. Jason, thank you so much for this presentation. Will we be able to get copies? Will we be able to have that?
Yes, we'll send those to you in the morning.
Okay. Board, do we have any questions? Comments?
I have a question, so follow up, with our financial planners, would that be after this goes forward to the other localities?
Yes.
Or how would that work, Angie?
The 911 authority uses Davenport as well.
Yeah.
And Blacksburg does also. So as soon as we get consensus to move forward, we would reach out to Courtney and get him to run some numbers for us. And like Jason said, we know the cost estimates are not correct, but
right,
they are what they are. We can estimate how much the debt service would be. And I would anticipate that it would be 20-year debt. It would be similar to school buildings or other things that we do. There are some things that we buy that are very short lives and some that have much longer lives. And so we can stretch the debt out over about 20 years, I would estimate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
No other questions? Jason, thank you so much. Oh, Supervisor DeMott?
I didn't really have a question, just the cost estimate that you provided is at the full price.
It is at the full price. It doesn't have interest.
Right,
So I
right.
think those are
Right.
going to offset.
Yeah.
I think it will be, even with the interest, I think it will be less than the full cost.
So the maximum full principal borrow would be around 9.4 million for Montgomery County's portion.
That's right.
That's correct. Yeah. The only thing I can promise about these numbers is they are absolutely not correct. But we believe them to be.
They will change.
We believe them to be too high.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you, Jason. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Do I have a motion to come out of work session?
Motion.
Motion and second, any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And we will take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back to items of consent. Alrighty. Board items of consent. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
New business. Special use permit, May Applings LLC Child Care Center.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Until they get the second entrance through West Hill, my vote's no.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 no.
Special use permit, DW LLC Rubble Landfill. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Montgomery County Public Schools supplemental appropriation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
All right, very good. Reports. County Attorney.
No report, Madam Chair.
Administrator, Mrs. Hill.
Just a reminder that there's a joint meeting with the schools this Wednesday at Blacksburg High School at 6 p.m. And then our legislative dinner is a week from today at 6:30 in Multipurpose Room 2. And our last meeting of the year will be December the 11th.
Good. All right. Board members, start off with Supervisor Fitchukowski.
I don't really have anything to report today, so thank you.
Supervisor King.
Don't have no report, but I would like to say after our last meeting, I had a gentleman call me the next day about the Auburn Park. And evidently when I said I was not against the extended field, he said I need to elaborate on that. I am in favor of the extended field. I just need to wait and see what it's going to cost. We do have $350,000 that we saved on the field, and if that would fix the field to extend it, I'd be in favor of it. But I am in favor of the bigger field.
Supervisor DeMotts.
I don't have a report, but I would like to ask if we could talk again at our next meeting about the Montgomery Museum, if that gives staff enough time to help us figure out if we can help fund their request.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, if that's possible. Thank you. That's all I have.
Supervisor Shepherd.
No report.
Vice Chair Biggs.
Well, my report is The Hokies did an outstanding job on Saturday, and that's all I'll say.
No report, just want to do a couple reminders to the community that the Lions Club Holiday Craft Show will be this Saturday, December the 2nd, at the Christiansburg Rec Center. So encourage everyone to come out. That's our biggest fundraiser for the Christiansburg Lions Club. And also it is Breakfast with Santa Claus at the Christiansburg High School this Saturday as well. With that being said, Supervisor King?
I think we need to congratulate the finance department.
Oh, absolutely. Woo. And that,
I remember.
Was that the 30?
I was just waiting.
That is the 36th.
That's right, the 36th year, consecutive year.
Yes, that we will congratulate them again, 36 consecutive years. So congratulations to them. Very
For
good.
the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting Excellence. I think that's the name of the award.
Excellent. So congratulations to them.
A lot of hard work goes into that. I appreciate all of the effort.
That is. And we appreciate all that they do.
Way to go.
Didn't
All right.
hear what you said.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.